Hi, and welcome to What's the Tea in L&E. I'm Leah.
I'm Mike.
And we are going to talk to you today about best practices for interviews. And specifically, what is good documentation that you should have as a company when conducting interviews to defend against a future failure to hire claim?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of different ways to approach this, and no one way is perfect. But a couple of best practices are try and have the same people in on every interview.
Well, yeah, and that's hard, right?
It
Because
is.
you might have 4 people on an interview panel, and the next day Jerry's out sick, right? I mean, but why is that even important?
You want consistency in the evaluators so that you can say, we had a similar process for all of these candidates. And when I say every interview, I mean every interview of the same type, right?
Yeah.
You're interviewing for a particular position. You want the same group of people in on that positional interview for each candidate, just to show consistency in process so that you can defend the process as being neutral and just looking for the best candidate.
Well, and someone might say, hey, only one of the 3 interview panels was in my interview. That was a totally sham interview. Like, you just interviewed me to say you interviewed a woman.
I was a token candidate.
That's right. All the men got 3 people, right? So no, you want to make sure it's the same process. Now, what about questions? Should we have questions ahead of time and what we're going to ask them?
Yes, I think it's important to have a set group of questions so that, again, you have consistency of process so that one candidate doesn't have the ability to accuse you of having prejudicial questions. You know, they only asked me about family time, right?
Right.
So you know, there is some free flow of conversation during an interview. It doesn't have to be this stilted, I will read the first question, you will read the next question. But consistency in process applies to the questioning as well. And you want to make sure everybody's given the same opportunity to answer a very similar set of questions.
Now, what about this, Mike? We have one client that I know that uses a scoring system, right? Where every person on the interview panel is circling like a 3 or a 5 or a 1 based on the way they felt that person answered the question. And then theoretically, they're supposed to go with the highest scoring person, but maybe they don't always do it. What do you think of a scoring system?
I think scoring systems can be helpful if they are not determinative, and if the documents that use the scoring system make it clear that the scoring system is not the only factor, because you have to allow for soft factors. You know, I hate the idea of saying, well, this person was the best fit, because it just becomes this giant bullseye for people to say, yeah, fit is just prejudicial.
Synonymous with race or gender.
Exactly. So, you know, but scoring systems can help you sort through a large group of candidates and have some objective metrics at the end. But if your scoring system is the be-all end-all, or if it looks like it's the be-all end-all in documents, and you don't hire the person with the highest score, man, they're going to turn that around and use it against you. So scoring systems are good tools if they're used appropriately, and if they're couched as being one metric, but not the only metric by which the candidates are judged.
And final kind of tip that I would recommend is be very mindful of the notes that interview panelists put on the sides of their documents. Even if you're just trying to remember a candidate, if you were to write, black female with glasses, right? Because if those documents ever were used against you, even if you were just doing that as a memory tip to say, who was this person again? That could look like you considered race or gender as part of your interview process. So make sure you train everyone on the panel.
Yeah, I had a case once where they literally wrote person with the limp.
Great. Yes, do not write that on your, don't train those managers.
That made the defense a little bit more challenging.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us on What's the Tea. Until next time.